Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and today I'm coming to share a couple of things really. One is this how to make this pretty card, which is a variation on the sort of tower card, and I saw this by Kikast on YouTube, which I think was in Dutch. So I've done my version, as always, and I wanted to share with you what I do with these cards to make it easier for me to create fun folds as I recreate them. Because obviously whenever you make a fun fold, the chances are you're going to make it again at some point, but you don't necessarily want to go through the hassle of cutting, recreating it from scratch. So what I do is I actually make myself a template with the measurements on, which I then keep to one side. So this is what I've done here, and you can see I kind of do a variation. So this has actually got a wider back than this one. I quite like the slightly narrower tower on that in the end, but I just make it out of old scrap card, so maybe some retired card as I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, or perhaps some scraps of card that I don't use that make anymore, or it's perhaps been a bit thinner, and on here I write all the measurements, so when I want to make it again I can do it quite easily. It also helps me make sure that I've made the card properly from the start, correctly. When I first started doing fun folds I didn't always do that, so occasionally I had some slight errors. So this is what I do anyway, and I then keep those in a little folder like this. I used to have just typed out measurements, but I found this works better for me because I can see all the different cards, and I've got several folders like this of cards. These are the ones that I've still got to make, and as I see a new fun fold or one that's new to me, I just pop it, make a template and pop it in there. So that's kind of the background to it really. This card I particularly liked. I just thought it was just a really nice way of showing the sort of the lightness of these dies, and it's really not as difficult as you might think. So let's get started. So to make the base, I'm actually going to make one in Smoky Slate and Blushing Bride this time. So this one was Crumb Cake and Blushing Bride, which I always think is a really pretty one. You can see I've popped a panel on the back there for you to write your message. So I'm going to use some Smoky Slate, and this piece is 14.5 by 17 centimetres, and on the 17 centimetre edge you're going to score every 4 centimetres. So that is at 4, at 8, at 12, and I'm just going to extend that out because the 16 is right on the join. I just find it easier, and that gives you that little panel at the end there. The other pieces you're going to need, I've already cut these in advance, so I'm just going to run through what you're going to need for these. So you're going to want 4 panels. Again, these are the Blushing Bride, and these are 10.5 by 3.5 centimetres. You want 4 panels that are 10 by 3 centimetres for those layers, and then 4 panels for stamping, which are 9 by 2.5 centimetres. So you could actually just take a piece which is 9.5 by 10 centimetres, and then cut those into, on the 10 centimetre edge, into 2.5 centimetre strips. So these ones I'm going to do the stamping on, and these are the ones I'm going to obviously use for my card in a while. And then what I've done is I've used the beautiful, which I didn't show you at the start, the lovely Quiet Meadow and Meadow dies. So this is the stamp set, and you'll see this has got this lovely sort of textured text and some lovely splatters, and these are the dies that go with them. So you can see a fabulous range of dies. We've got kind of almost like sort of seed heads and foliage, butterflies as well, a little dinky tag. I've used a few of these already, yeah, found them really good. So what I've done is I've taken those, and I've shown you before, often I'll have a pack with various die cuts in them. And so I've then just used the my mini cut and emboss to die cut those. So I've cut myself a label, and then I've just cut some in Blushing Bride and Smoky Slate, and I've also got some in basic white as well, which you can always add a little bit of colour onto if you want to mix it up a little bit. So let's grab one of those out as well. Okay, so the other thing you want as well is you want a couple of pieces of card for the back, which are 4.5 by 14 centimetres, which I thought I'd cut, but hey, perhaps I haven't. So let's quickly grab a couple of those. We'll want to stamp those as well. So just our ordinary basic white, and they're going to be 14 by 3.5 centimetres. I think I might have told you the wrong. So yeah, so 3.5 centimetres. And then you just want to trim those down to 14. So those are my pieces for stamping. Okay. So those are my pieces for the back. These are my pieces for the front. And I'm just going to kind of work out what I might like. I quite like these long ones. I thought those were quite pretty for creating a bit of sort of a joining part. So you want at least 2 for each side, and then I kind of popped in an extra one on the one side. So I'll add those on once I've done my stamping to see which I prefer. So all I'm going to do, pop those to one side, get my die cut bits out of the way, and I'm going to use a mixture of my Blushing Bride and my Smoky Slate. So I think let's use, I think Smoky Slate perhaps for the text. And what I did with the first one was I kind of had 2 that were mainly text. But I'm actually going to stamp off a couple of those as well, just to add a little bit of interest. There we go. And by stamping off, you just get that sort of slightly paler colour, and then come in with the Blushing Bride. And these are really designed kind of for that kind of eclectic kind of look, slightly different to my sort of style. So that's how I added our panels for the front, and then on our panel for the back, I'm just going to, on the one panel, use my main flower image, and then pop in with some slight dots and sort of, I won't say grunge, because grunge to me is not a nice, it's not a nice word. Distressed look perhaps is a little bit more what we're wanting. And then I'm going to use the little love stamp as well. And then I'm also going to use, when I can find it, my Thinking of You, which is going to go on the front. So I've die cut this, but I'm actually going to trim off the ends. So I'm just going to hopefully get that fairly straight. Easier said than done when you're on camera, believe you me. In fact, I've done a fairly rubbish job of that. Let's see if we can sort of disguise some of that. So some of that unevenness. Okay. And then I'm just going to use my little flower on the other one. Okay. So I'm going to pop that to one side before I stick my elbows, fingers into it and drop things in, which is just as likely. And then we can start creating our layers. So I'm just going to take each of these and just use my Stampin' seal to pop that onto my layer of smoky slate. And you could trim these measurements down if you wanted, and make a narrower border, which you know often with millimetres I do. It's like the 1/8 of an inch. 1/2 centimetre is lovely, but sometimes you just want something slightly smaller. And with these die cuts, often I'll die cut them with our adhesive sheets. But because I'm actually kind of using these as a bit of a suspension, I obviously don't want the glue in the middle bit. And whilst you can kind of remove that with a bit of talc if you want to, I find that often there's still just enough tackiness that with a card like this you don't want somebody to be struggling to open it and work out how to display it. One thing I didn't say is obviously that I have designed this to go into a standard C6 envelope, so you'll find that it will go into one of our standard envelopes, which is always good. Might be a little thick to go through as a standard letter. In the UK might be a large letter. I haven't actually posted one or tried it in an envelope size, in a letter sizer, but I don't know if that applies elsewhere in the world. Here we go. So those are my 4 panels, and these are my 2 for the back. So with our piece of card that we've already scored, what I'm going to do is just trim those little corners away. And I'm just going to fold and reinforce those. And you should find that now meets nicely just in the middle there. I haven't actually cut that very straight. Goodness knows what I've done with that. That's weird. Oh. I'm just taking a slight slither off that because I'd obviously not quite got it right. So it does leave it a little bit short, but that's fine, because all I'm going to do is put my Stampin' seal down the edge there, and then fold that in like so. So that's our basics of tower. And you can choose whether you want to have that seam at the front or the back. I generally put it at the back, but it would work just as well. And this is where your grid paper comes in really useful. What I would suggest is that you decide which order you want your panels to go in. And I start with the top first, and it's going to go at the top here, and you just need to centre that. So I kind of look and kind of go, okay, that's about there. And you just want to put glue on the one side. So make sure that's nice and square. Add it to the top, and it's going to go to the top of our panel. So that is stuck just to that panel there. Then we're going to do our bottom one. And this one is going to stick on the left-hand side. Okay, so again, you're not putting glue, if I show you, you're not putting it all the way to the edge, you're just putting it on about an inch on the centre. So again, put your score line on the centre, make sure it's nice and square, And you can, if it helps, obviously use your grid lines, use a rule if you haven't got grid paper, and just line that up at the bottom like so. Then all that remains is to pop your other ones in. So this one needs to go on the left, and the other one needs to go on the right. And there's just a teeny tiny gap. So what I do is I sort of pop them on just gently to make sure they're sort of lined up, and to get my gap as well, like so. And once I'm happy with that, you can press those down, and there you've got your sort of interlocking flap on the front there. And now what remains is to pop our panels on the back and to add our decoration to the front. So again, if you wanted to, you could pop a panel, a contrast panel on the back here, or you could obviously do something, just add 2 or 3 layers if you wanted to. I personally, because it's quite bulky already, you've got quite a few layers, I'm keeping it with just the simple, because you've got the grey background already, and sort of the bits of pink showing, so I think that gives it enough, but you could add a slight layer in there as well. So now we're going to come to doing decoration on the front. So where we've stamped this piece, I'm just going to come in and trim those off, because it's going to need to sit on that right hand side there. So the maximum you want that to be is about 7 centimetres. No, you don't even want it to be 7. It needs to be a maximum of 5.25, just over 5 centimetres, because the overall width of this is 10.5. So you just need to trim it, and then you can then decide where you want your other pieces to go. So I've kind of gone with these, and I thought I'd add a little bit of interest to this by taking just a sponge dauber and adding a little extra to the flowers there. So you can see I'm just coming in and just adding a little bit there. And I thought I'd also try adding a little bit of pink to the top of the grey as well, just to add a little bit, and we'll see how that works out. So I'm going to pop my various strands. So I kind of quite like to have one of those on each side, varying the pink and grey, and you're going to want to sort of attach those, so that will help decide where you're going to put them. So I quite like alternating, so I'm actually going to pop my taller ones on this, because they are obviously some more suspended, and a taller one here. I'm going to pop one there and a strand there, and because it always kind of, I prefer to have something that is some odd numbers, I'm going to pop, when I've finished, pop that one in the middle, I'll pop a grey one behind as well. Okay, so now all we need to do is literally just glue those in place. Now I use a fine tip glue for these, so I'm just going to look at where they are and look at where I need to put my glue. So I'm going to put some behind here, using my card to line up where it's going to be. So I'm going to put some on this section here, and I would always suggest that you pop it on like so, and just hold it in place just for a few seconds and allow it to pop up. So just bear in mind, I'm just going to move that to one side. I'm going to put my grey ones first. So I'm going to put my other pink one in here. So again, just working out, so it's this middle section here, flip it over, and then you can work out from this where you want that glue to go. and I want some down at the bottom here on that stem. So as I say, this is the kind of fiddliest bit of this card, and you just want to make sure that those sections stay where they are. And you can see there, apart from managing to get a hair, okay. And I'm keeping them to the right hand side of that fold because you don't want anything on that fold because it'll affect the mechanism. Now I'm going to put my 2 grey pieces. So with these I'm very much going at the top, very top of it, and on this middle section here. So again, using the card to line those up. And I'm putting those grey ones in the background. So again, folding them over and adding my glue to the very top and to this middle section. And then final bit is obviously our last stem. As I said, by sort of changing the colours up, it just makes a little bit different. And I thought the kind of grey was a bit like the shadows. And then you'll see I've got the 3 stems here, and that's where my thinking of you is going to go, on the bottom there. So in this instance I'm actually going to pop my panel onto the front of those stems. So I'm just adding the glue to those stems, and then I can pop my panel over the top, and I'm just opening that up, making sure I haven't got any glue just while that dries. So slightly fiddlier perhaps than usual, but I hope you agree it's worth the effort in the end, because there you have a couple of really pretty thinking of you cards with our lovely meadow dies and the beautiful Quiet Meadow stamp set. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me again soon, and don't forget, if you'd like to purchase any of the products, just click on the description bar below for links to the products, or pop along to my blog and you'll find there's a picture of things I've used, and you can just click on the button to go straight to my shop. I really appreciate it if you support me in my endeavours. So thanks for watching. Bye now.